Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, I appreciate every one of you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video to help the message get out and reach more people. Thank you. As well, if you like reading, do please know the message is not out via book and Kindle on Amazon. For those who want to stop by and check it out, it'll be much appreciated. Thank you. Well, everyone, today I want to touch on what was happening a lot, right, during the shoe era. And basically, there was those members that just had more people, you know, and flexed it. At the end of the day, took control of a lot more yards. And even though they weren't known to go after members, right? They were always on the defense. I'm speaking about, for example, Terco. As you guys notice, throughout my whole, since 99 till I left state, I was one way or another helping, supporting, right, with Terco. And overall, he was always in the defense, right? He would not allow a member that thought he was all this and that push him around. You hardly ever seen him though, like move on an individual, right? But here's the story how more so how two Pilis bump heads and how the repercussions come down, right? We gotta always remember, we're just pawns that are, and pawns are meant to be sacrificed. You guys get what I'm trying to say? But anyways, I'll take you back to Corcoran, right? This has to be 2003, towards the end, around October. But while I'm there, you know, the old man from Watch, Rolo, he had a worker in Soledad and level three. For those that know level threes, even though you always hear like, oh, level fours are is where it's at. It's yeah, violence, right? Violence. There's a lot more violence. There's a lot more senores or workers representing senores because it's shoe kickouts, lifers. But if a Pili has level three, well, at this time, that's where the money's at. Level threes, level twos, level ones. That's where there's more money than a level four. Level four are always lockdowns and drama, just straight up drama, right? Because his camaradas always wanted to prove themselves by stomping on the next camarada. And those are just facts. Billy's always flexing power in them levels. But getting into the story, Rolo had a worker, Spider, from Elm Street, Watts, doing things for him. I don't know Rolo's reach, but to be sincere, it looked like he didn't have none at all. I don't know if it was because. he was just bouncing around, and he had hit Corcoran, and they wouldn't let him organize or tap into a pipeline, right? But nevertheless, there in Corcoran, like I stated, it was flooded with ice, big time. And even though the ones that were bringing it in as a whole, or the ones tapping into it and having someone bring it in, were were the wood pile, right? And Rolo would end up fixing something with the individual of the wood pile that had the authority to call cuetes, right? And he would start buying pounds, you know, and he would start sending some to Spider to bring in. I guess the homie Spider had a crew, and they would bring it in, and it's hypocrisy at its finest, right? Rolo's orders were exactly that, that they could sell that to the wood to the others, even to the paisas, but no homies were allowed to use. Let me just tell you, Rolo was twacked out for months in and out in Corcoran, you know, and it's not his cup of tea. His cup of tea is chicharron, He likes that negrita to dance around in his vena, but there wasn't at the moment none coming in. Like I said, the plug coming in was ice, right? And I guess something's better than nothing, right? And anyways, the reason I know of this, because at the same time, Terco had a worker that was right there in Soledad too, doing things for him. The homie Sparky from Colonia. And it was different though, Terco had a lot of different people that could tap in. I'm not gonna say tap in like, hey, I want 80 kilos type of tap in, but at least, hey, I want an ounce of this, a couple ounces of that, and he was able to, regardless. Homies from Basset, from Lomas, heck, you know, and it just happened at this time, you know, he asked me to let's get, it wasn't even much, dos pedazos, but into Soledad. And basically, we were flipping that money. What I mean by flipping was whatever came out of Soledad, I was helping Terco go back into product, Let me make more sense. Terco would get at me, and as you guys know, Terco was in high desert, Kern Valley. He was in Centinela, Ironwood. He was, he had a lot of places, you know, and what we were doing, it wasn't specifically for Soledad. Let me just say, when it came to making money, though, Ironwood and Soledad were the ones tapping in the most. So where I was supporting is, hey, you get at the homie, you square it off. I don't need to see no feria from them. Make sure everything you come in, you know, you write it down accordingly, and you stack it up somewhere for the next batch. And when we're speaking about the next batches, three, four pedazos, right? Nah, excuse me, 3, 4 kilos of chapopote. And, cause that's a grip of money. I know it's easy to spit it out the mouth, but there ain't too much peelies that could get 3, 4 kilos of chapopote at one hit. Give you an example. At this time, the whole kilo of chapopote in California was going for about 36K. And when I mean about staying relevant, tapping into a pipeline, prices is with my family, we're working it at 30K per key. So straight off the back, if Terco grabbed it and at the same moment turned around and gave it to another person for the price it was going for, 36, he would win 6,000 off the gate. That's what I mean about tapping into prices. Jale, work, material, there's always people moving work, right? But there ain't too many that are moving clean work with no cut, with good prices, and that will put it wherever you want. That's what I speak about being relevant, staying relevant, picking up value for yourself if you guys get it. Anyways, everything was going cool, right? Somehow, some way, and I'm pretty sure it was among Spider and Sparky that they talked, on the yard, on how things were, and Sparky told Spider, basically who he was answering to, which I was nobody. Remember that, but Sparky was answering up to me because, well, again, whatever came out of there, I was keeping tabs, right, and redirecting that feria to go and stack up somewhere for the next batch. And Sparky have no business telling Spider Terco's avenues or people under him, right? Nevertheless, he did. Spider told Rolo, and Rolo would end up getting at me, you know, and he would tell me, like, hey, camarada, I know you're working for my hermano, all respect, right? And I heard he could tap into some negra, and I just wanted to ask you if, there's room there to get some. Me as a sureño, what can I do? What can I say? I the only thing that popped in my head was he's twacked out. I honestly thought Rolo was gonna be one of them that was gonna lock it up. Sincerely, he never did nothing funny, but just the way he was using. But I guess some people just got that tolerance more than others, right? And I would tell him like, look, yeah, I can, but the people that's there, I didn't tell him it was my family or nothing like that, right? Because oh, he knew regardless, but I didn't tell him. I told him the people that's there, all they're doing is keys, a black, you know, and they want it up front. They ain't doing that. I got you. Here it is. Get me back in 10, 20 days, whatever. Nah, it's on the spot. You get you get your jale, they get their feria. And again, it wasn't really that. It was me analyzing the situation in the shoe, right? and he asked me how much the keys were going for. And I couldn't give him the same price I was doing with Terco for a lot of reasons. One is Terco finds out, oh, he was a jealous individual, and what I'm doing with them to show the same respect to another Pili at the same time. If it would have been at different times, Terco would, well, he had a fit, even though he's his brother, whatever. Especially because it was that dumb things happening, that Pelican Bay, Corcoran type of thing. They were in this distrust. We'll just leave it at that. So I told him 33, and I told him you could ask what they're going for on the streets. You're still saving, and this is Jale. You could turn around and sell. It has nothing, no type of cut. It really is fresh chicharrón coming from wherever it spent around, and I explained everything. For those that know how to chicharrón, when you're making it, you spin it around with the acids, and you're able to pull it up, right? And the more you're able to pull it up, when you tap it off, as long as it stays up, as long as you did, that's how good it is. And I told him, anyways, that's not important. And he said he was going to check on it, and I told him, all right, cool. So my thing next was to tell Tercum, I don't know why Sparky would throw me under the bus and put me in that position. I can't lie to your brother. I also know he's there in the same jardín, and if I give him action, he's gonna start competing, with you. I didn't do it to throw shade on Rolo or nothing. I was doing it to cover my butt, And matching, Rolo starts bringing it in with Spider. Okay, that's cool. And all them individuals that were getting Negra from Terco or Sparky not gonna have another option, right? And the only thing is, I knew for a fact that since it didn't have no cut in it, Rolo wasn't gonna be like Terco, right? Terco, he got it out like that. Vámonos, you know. Make sure one of them papiros gets 3, 4 individuals high, and Rolo, he was gonna take advantage, right? And just out of one key, try to make at least 1.5, right? With cut, and the material wasn't gonna be the same, but regardless, he was gonna take people from Terco, and that's part of loyalty, right? And knowing my spot too. I was nobody. I'm not gonna lie to the Pili and get cut up for it later on, right? For those that know Rolo, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, to not make a long story longer, Terco would get mad. He would literally get mad at Sparky from Colonia Watts and tell him, like, why would he even mention who he's getting at? When he was asked, I'm working on the Terco period, point blank. All the middlemans, that's nobody's business, right? That's, to be sincere, that's automatically for you to get hit, you know. how you representing a Pili and at the same time throwing out everything you know that's underneath that Pili, all the moves, all the people. That's like straight snitching. And I'm sorry that these are the conflicts that camaradas are going through, we're going through, is they get put in that spot. And unfortunately, you're under a Pili, that next camarada that's under a different Pili, that's not your homie. You know, your homies on the yard, you're representing the same cause, but behind the scenes, you're not camaradas, you're competition. And I mean it in the sense that, yeah, you could sit down, joke around. Both of them were from Watts, maybe even, so and so and so and so. But at the end of the day, you don't expose the Pili you're under his hand, people. Terco was real known to have your wig pulled for that, but he didn't with Sparky. What ended up happening is Rolo came up with the feria for one. So I told him, cool. He wanted it delivered in Watts, right? So he got it where he wanted it. The people there, like I stated, tried it out, seeing how pure it was or whatever, went about their way to throw in extra, to make extra feria, and we circle around back to Spider, you know, getting it into Spider, and greed, straight up greed, eh? Because when Spider got it and he tried to push it on the yard, everybody started complaining about it, that it was weak, that one fat papiro would hardly give someone a head change, right? And I guess it started happening anywhere where Rolo was sending that too. And of course, my name was out there. He got at me, right? Trying to put blame. And I don't look, I'm just the middleman. The jale you're getting is the jale Terco's getting. So you got to speak with your people with all due respect. Those are adding to it to benefit more, to get more feria. I don't know if you're telling them to. I don't know if they're doing it on their own. None of my business. But whatever they're doing to it is basically washing it down to the point where, you know, and I know it was him. He spun out, and his mentality was, you know, like I said, if a cue is good, it's still good if you make like 1 1/4, it will still be Bombay, maybe 1/3. But when you get greedy and you want to make half of Kia with cut or more than that, just to have it around, right? Just to take advantage of it, it's going to become weak. And, anyways, I ran this through Raul and Terco, and they would get mad, because getting up to this point, my family is known for they don't mess around with cut, period. I never have, never will probably. And they were upset, and Terco is the one that told me, I'll take care of it. And I told him, what do you mean you'll take care of it? Yeah, I'll take care of it. And I guess he got at Rolo behind the scenes and told him, like, hey, look, China supported me with what you're getting. When you get it, how the seals? And he would tell him the seals and tell him that's exactly what I'm getting. So address your people, There's a lot of things, whatever he told him we were doing. And basically, the one that didn't have fault at all was Spider. Remember, he was getting maybe a pedazo every other week or every weekend, I don't know. But he was receiving what was going through a lot of different hands on the streets and what. It wasn't his fault what was coming in, but it was easier for him to take it out on Spider and Spider's crew than I guess the people on the streets, that they were the ones that should have been dealt with, you know. But since the people on the streets, they weren't just directing it to Salinas, Soledad, other places on the street, they were making feria for him. They held more value than an individual on the yard with a bunch of complaints and most of all, Billy didn't like you having a position of authority. And let's say when people come and whine and cry to you, you know, to say it like that, dispensing, saying, oh, the jale ain't good, woo, 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 whatever, instead of you dealing with the situation. For example, hey, that's what came in from the pili. You got it. You know what type it is now. Ni modo, you already shut it up, right? Get on. I know it's scandalous, but as part of holding a position and resolving things, no. Instead, you go through the routes, even though squad could get them, and then you're complaining to the pili about all these complaints. You're trying to pin blame on someone else when you should resolve it. For example, on the spot. Hey, the jale ain't good. Hey, that's what came in from the pili. You know, you already shut it up. Next time, that's what the material is, and there's nothing I could do. And at the same time, stay just request from the pili. Hey, the jale coming in is like this, and that. I'm having numerous complaints, and not just one after another after another. You become a headache. And basically, what ended up happening is Rolo started telling Spider and his crew to try to take Terco's connects, right? What I mean about connects is there was a couple people that when it came in, they already had separated separate 5, 6 grams, right? And I got you. I'll shoot him out front. It was it's been like that for a while, right? Remember, the feria is coming, to me. So I always got it, and I would write the pili and tell him, hey, camarada, you know, 3, 4 roses, 5 roses touched down here, so he knows what was there, right? And these individuals basically try to lower prices, be like, hey, if he's giving it to you for a gram for 300 bucks, I'll give it to you for two. Because it was bunk material, the cut they put in, it was, don't matter how good it is in the beginning, you keep spinning it, it's gonna be wet. So they were stuck with it. Nobody wanted it. By this time, everybody knew, right? And Terco found out, and that's one thing about Terco. He won't allow that or to get pushed around by another member. So he would have not the homies Sparky, but he would have Sparky find a couple of shooters and basically hit everyone a Spider's crew as Spider for Rolo, and Rolo was hot. Believe me, I got that one time from Rolo. We like, what the F? We were thinking, ooh, and what can I say? I was like, man, I'm right here. They don't answer to me. They answer to your brother Terco. Do please direct your concern with him. Con todo respeto, I couldn't really tell you what's going on the yard. I have no knowledge of it. And he was hot. We'll just leave it at that, right? I'm surprised he didn't press the issue more on me. But then again, I'm pretty sure the way he was thinking is like, okay, maybe in the future, the camaradas here, we could still do something, right? So, anyways, Spider and some of them would end up finding their way because it's IGI scandalous. Uh, at this time, IGI was being scandalous, even though they got whacked, removed us into the shoe. IGI has so much on them from people telling that once they hit the hole for being victims, right? IGI slapped them with validations. They validated them. So they will end up hitting, Corcoran. As they did so, right away, roll away Spider, so and so, so and so, and so and so. They're to get hit. They're not to be considered camaradas. And since they were his worker, all the other Pilis had to respect that. Terco was happy. He stayed with the whole yard, right? Sparky took control for at least another year or so till IGI removed him. But that's what happens. The end look on this one is, you know, when two Pilis start competing with each other, which it always happens, either via the workers being on the yard or now themselves being on the yard, it's always going to become a competition. Even though what comes out of their mouth is, oh, my brother, and this and that, whatever my brother says, oh, I'm behind him. Behind the scenes, they're telling us warriors like, hey, if this fool's selling a gram uh, every day, I want you to sell three. Make it right with prices and, or trying to spin the material differently. Now I'm pretty sure it's even more worse, right? That they're cutting everything with fentanyl and trying to give you a head change. So basically, they could get something good and really spin it around to make a profit, with fentanyl. And but at the end of the day, the end look is that, camaradas, even though if you're there, buckle up, ready for the causa, my respects and my love to it. I lived and breathed for the causa. My step back wasn't because of the causa, because of the homies. Believe me, it would have never happened if it was that. It's for the greed of these individuals. But the end look is that. Don't ever forget, sureños, yeah. You know, some camaradas could be important at times. Real love and respect because of what they bring to the table. Violence means nothing. Believe me, nothing. It's always what you can bring to the table. Like I said, yes, camaradas could have a lot of value and importance, just like a chess game. Pawns are to be sacrificed, but there is pawns that are more important, better to keep and be utilized than be thrown in sacrifice. But at the end of the day, we're all pawns. So if you haven't been there, don't get misled to think you could go in there and you could push hard to earn yours. I'll leave that with an open question. Please tell me what it is to be locked up, sitting down, and earn yours. That famous thing a lot of people use, go in and earn your stripes. Please tell me the meaning of it. Tell me if that even makes sense to what's out there. With the said, please stay true to yourself and all your loved ones.